Hey, what's up everybody? Ryan from Music Farm here. Have an interesting one for you today. I'm going to be showing you my custom Pro Tools templates. Over the years, I've refined my tracking, my editing, and my mixing processes down to the point where they're more leaning towards the creative side and not the technical side. What I mean by that is I've created this system whereby I don't have to be creating new tracks, I don't have to be scrolling through my plugins list, and I don't have to be starting from scratch every single time. Let's get into it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so the first thing that I want to make clear with templates is that they should always be a starting point. You should never fall for what a lot of people online will pitch as, the magic trick that you just import your audio into these templates and you're done. That's just not practical. That's not the way I work, and that's not what these particular templates are intended for. Let me show you a finished mix. I'll quickly go through the routing with you to give you an idea, an overview of what it is that I do, and then I will jump into the individual templates, and then I'll actually create a new session where I'll import the session data and just basically show you how my sessions will evolve from pre-production scratch tracks right down to the final mixes. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is just a random song that I picked from my recently completed list of tracks. This is the Canadian Way that my buddies Nick, Cody, and Kurt did with me a few months ago. It's a cover by a Canadian band called Guy Smiley. Excellent band. Definitely recommend checking them out. So let's take a listen to the audio, kind of what the finished product sounds like, and then we'll flip over to Under the Hood and show you what got me there.
Did you believe you could take it away? We'll hold strong, it's a Canadian way. Not about the cash, about the cash.
All right, so that's it. That's what the mix sounds like. I'm really happy with that one. It was a lot of fun to work on. We'll go to the mix window, and we'll just do a quick rundown of how the routing works and what my tracks look like. So I work kind of left to right: drums, bass, guitar, vocals, effects. So starting things off, we have our kick drums here. These all route out to the kick bus. Snares all go to the snare bus, which is right here. With the exception of this one reverb I have here. This is actually a reverb sample, and it doesn't require much compression. So I break it out of the snare bin, move it to the right, and it just runs right out to the drums directly. Toms out to the tom bus, cymbals out to the cymbal bus. Pretty straightforward stuff. I'm sure you can see where this is going. My drum rooms go out to the rooms, and then everything gets fed into my drum bus, which is right here. That goes out to the mix. Then I have my parallel drum crush bus, and that goes out to the mix as well. So we have a lot of sends over here too. This is a side chain for track spacer, which ducks the low frequencies on the bass guitar whenever the kick hits. It's very handy. I'm sending out to my drum room, which is a fake drum room sound, or a drum room track that I have using Valhalla Room. Excellent plugin. The large wood room or large wood chamber. Can't remember what it's called. Anyways, there's a preset in there called that. And it just sounds awesome. And then I have my drum crush. And that's going to be similar on all my drum auxes. Drum room, drum crush. Send out to a snare gate here, snare plate. And this is a side chain of the snare that goes to the guitar bus. And it's going to duck the high and low frequencies of the snare from the guitar frequencies. Toms, drum room, drum crush, effects. CLA Effects has a great canyon reverb that I like on toms, so I kind of made that its own special send right there. Moving along. Cymbals go out to the drum room as well. And this is the drum room right here that I'm talking about. My particular room is not that big. It doesn't have a lot of ambience, definitely not the size and space that you're looking for in a drum room. So I create this fake track with this plugin. Even though I do have a stereo room mics in my room, they're relatively close to the kit. So this particular stereo track, although it's a room track, it's essentially kind of like a combination room track, overhead track. So having this fake drum room track gives me some more flexibility. Okay, then we have my bass guitar going out to the bass bus. And I normally, if there was just one track, I would just send that out to the mix bus. But for bass guitar, I usually have an amp or two in there from time to time. And it's just nice to have a bass bucket to dump all those into. Guitars are down here. They all route out to my guitar bus. I normally wouldn't have the DI tracks present in a final mix. But in this case, I have virtual amps running on these two DI tracks. So they stuck around just for that reason alone. Routing here is pretty typical for me. This left guitar is going to go out to the right reverb a room reverb that I have. And my right guitars will go out to the left room reverb. It's a trick that I got from Warren Hewart that adds some width to the guitars. Very cool. This is my lead guitar, so it gets room up the middle instead of the left and right. And then I have my guitar delay send on there. My guitar bus is sending out to Vocal Rider. Actually, so is my bass track too, down over here. Both of these are sending to the Vocal Rider bus, which is a sidechain for the Vocal Rider plugin. Bass, guitar, drums, bass, and guitar go to the Vocal Rider sidechain. That way, when the music is loud, the instruments are loud, the Vocal Rider will ride the vocals up a little higher. When the instruments get softer, it'll ride them down a little quieter. So that's on all of the main buses as well. You can see Vocal Riders here on the drums, Vocal Rider on the crush, Vocal Rider on the bass, Vocal Rider on the guitars. Another thing too is I'm sending out to my rear bus, which is an Andrew Sheps trick where we bus the bass, bass, guitar, and vocals to the rear bus. And it just adds a bit of life, not a bit of life, actually, it adds a lot of life to the mix. Because as the vocals being the loudest part of the group, that's what's going to trigger most of the compression. So when the vocals are present, they're going to be nice and squashed in together. But when the vocals disappear, the bass guitar will ride up a little higher, and it just kind of makes everything ebb and flow. And it's just a really cool sounding trick that I'm glad I figured out, or I'm glad I found, I should say. Didn't figure nothing out. Andrew Sheps came up with that one. This is my vocals. They're all going to the vocal bus. Vocal bus is sending out to my Aphex Exciter, which is just adds a little bit of upper lift to the vocals, and I mix into it by having that present in my rear bus. And then everything else, like I said, those go out to the mix bus. And then I have my effects over here. I'll get into those in more detail when I get into the mix template. And that goes to my master, mix bus, out to my mains. And then I guess the other thing to point out too is that I have heat turned on. One click to the left, one click to the right. You're good to go. All right, so let me walk you through the individual templates that got me to this point without actually having to create any tracks and without having to go through my plugins list. All right, so this is my templates folder. Various templates I have is my Kemper, keys, MIDI drums, mix, sample mixes, tracking, and tuner. Open up the Kemper one here first. Kemper is mostly a utility template for me that I'll use to I'll use when I'm basically auditioning profiles. If I get like if I buy a big pack and I need to go through them all, it's handy to pull up this, and I have all my inputs and outputs from the Kemper ready to go, and it just makes my life easier. And I even have some MIDI drums in here, as you can see. Just something to jam along to when you're trying out profiles. Just handy to have set up and ready to go. Great for when bands are in and want to audition a whole bunch of templates during pre-production. This is my keys template. I don't really use keys a lot in my music, so I don't have this in my my main tracking template, but I keep this here so that way when I need it, it's available. I just have a basic, this 25 from Contact in here. Sounds like this. So it's just kind of a handy pad to have ready. You know, I can pull that up in a heartbeat, especially too, even if especially if we're working on a song where there was no keys intended and somebody says, oh, I got an idea for keys. I can literally just import this. We're ready to go. It doesn't have to do any routing. I don't have to make any tracks. I don't have to go through my library. I'm ready to go. And that's really the main point of all these templates. It's to work fast, work creatively, not get bogged down in the technical aspect of everything that we do, like I said before. Next is my MIDI drums template. I use this for converting my shells to MIDI with Massey DRT. I have two samplers in the actual session SSD, which has my default kit loaded up into it. I also have Contact here. It's labeled GGD because most of the time I use GGD if I don't use SSD. But realistically, I do have all these libraries in here. Blasting Room, Butch Vig Drums, very cool. Modern and Massive, Invasion, J Moss, Room Series. The usual stuff. So these are just auxes with the samplers on them. And then these are MIDI tracks, kick, snare, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3. Don't really do toms anymore, but I do keep them in there just in case. So I'm mostly just focusing on the kick and snare. So these will get imported into my session after I have done my editing. And it's just one more step that is just a couple of clicks and I'm ready to go. Next, I'm going to skip over the mix template because it's a big one. This is my samples mixes. Like all of us, I have a lot of samples in my sample library that I like. Some are my go-tos. And in those cases, I have them imported. I've imported the session data from, say, a mix that I was working on that I liked, those samples, and I just bring it in here. So this is my CLA kick, kick enhance, kick cruise, which is drum shots, kick panzer. These are all just samples that, like I said, that wouldn't be surprised to find in a mix of mine. And these are the starting points for what the those samples sound best like, and at the volume that they sound best at. So just another step to speed things up. By the time I even get to converting my drums to MIDI, I've already sort of mixed my real kit. So it's just nice to be able to print these samples down, import the session data, have those samples gel nicely with my existing kit, and just keeps my workflow going. And the last kind of utility one I have here is my vocal tuner. And this one's pretty straightforward. This is just 20 audio tracks with Antares Auto Key, Melodyne, and Auto Tune on all the tracks. And then I have the outputs already routed sequentially. So track 1 outputs to Melodyne 1, track 2, Melodyne 2, so on and so forth, all the way down. So again, when I'm doing my vocal tuning, I can import as many of these tracks as I need, copy my vocals from the main tracks where they recorded up to these tracks, and then I can dump everything into Melodyne in one shot. I have auto-tune ready to go. Basically everything I need is turned on and ready. All right, so the first one that I'll typically work with is my tracking template. And as you can see by here, I have quite a few of them dating back to 2017. So essentially I can go back in time. If I happen to remember something that I was doing in the past that got phased out, I can jump back to it and restore it by using this very simple naming convention. Doesn't take up much hard drive space, and it just allows me to have a backup in case I need to recall something that maybe got taken out that I didn't want to. All right, so this is my tracking template. Start off easy enough, kick. And I have the F6 real-time analyzer by Waves on pretty much all of my tracks to start out with. I do all my cutting with this particular plugin. So I've got some filtering. This is one band that I typically will dip out on that is ready to go if I need to. SSL's drum strip. Excellent plugin. I really only use it for the high and low frequency enhancers. Not 100% how it does what it does, but I love what it does. So I keep that on all my shells. Then I have my SSL channel ready to go. I do processing of my kick and snare on the way in through a Neve preamp and EQ into an 1176 compressor. So the kick and snare don't usually get a lot of EQ, but the SSL channel's here and ready to go if I need it. I have aux for drum gate on my kick, snare, and my toms. That looks like this. I keep this in my template so that way after I have done my tracking, I've done my phase alignment with auto line, I can then just click this on, gate my drums, commit them, good to go. And then here is auto align. And this is on all of my drum tracks. And that is used to focus nudge the tracks around to focus the kit and give it more punch and more clarity. Really great plugin and a step that I really recommend taking because it makes the drums sound amazing. Those inactive. And then last but not least here, I'm doing a send to my fake drum room, which I will use while I'm tracking. I don't use a lot of effects when I'm tracking. Basically the drum room, a couple of reverbs and a delay. That's about it. Just keep things light, but also so there's a bit of, some sauce, some effects in there that makes the song sound cool while we're in the early stages of tracking. Snare top, snare drum strip, and the channel strip. Moving right along, snare bottom, and the SSL channel. And these are all, like I said, these are all zeroed out because they're my starting points. I never really have set amounts that I want to cut or boost, but the frequencies that are here are probably left over from where I like them. So, just one less thing for me to worry about. It just gives me a better starting point, so I'm not right from scratch. Toms are here. Huge dip on this one. Very common for my toms. Channel strip, drum strip, SSL, and then low control, which is compressing the low end from 120 hertz down, and then it's enhancing 120 hertz up. So makes them cut through on small speakers really nicely. Great plugin. These are all the same, except the frequencies have just been lowered in response to what the floor tom's going to be sounding like. Hi-hat and ride. They all start out the same with lots of low end cutoff. I don't want many shells in there, and then this kind of mid dip, which takes out some of the clanginess in both of those particular cymbals. Channel strip, pretty straightforward there. Next is the anal mic, which gets a lot of filtering, 80 hertz, 4 kilohertz. The arouser, hitting it pretty hard with this one to really bring out some nastiness in it. SSL, and then my Magnum BB tubes. This one is really cool. This is my talkback channel. There's a microphone, just a SM58 that I keep next to my drummers when they're in the other room. And this one's from SoundRadix. It's called Mute-O-Matic. It's a free plugin, so you can't beat the price. And what you do is you just put this track to input mode instead of record, because we don't want to be recording the talkback mic. So you put it to input mode, and then the audio will pass through when you're stopped. But as soon as you hit record, this plugin mutes the talkback mic so you can't hear it while you're tracking. Really kind of neat little utility plugin. These are my crash tracks. These ones are all the same. F6. Again, much like the hi-hat and ride, rolling off a lot of the low end, bringing up or bringing down, dipping down in here. This is probably going to be taking out some of the snare that's in the overhead. These ones do have processing on them, or the levels already on them. I don't know if the hi-hat and ride do. Yeah, they do too. Yeah, I leave those ones on because I don't process on the way in. But these are just very low amounts, 3 dB, 5 dB, minor moves. And then the crashes have the CLA 76, the black version. Turn that analog off. It sounds like crap. Stereo room would be the same. Just got a little bit taking some of the boomy sub off. Not really doing anything here. And then the blue 1176, which will get hit pretty hard. And this is my fake drum room right here, which I showed you before, Valhalla room. A track with this on, just to give the drums more size and ambience while we're tracking. Again, it's just about trying to get to the finished product as early as I can. So the song is taking shape right from the beginning, and couple of effects here and there go a long way towards doing that. Next is my bass DI. I have Parallax by Neural DSP in here. It's kept inactive for the most part, unless we decide we really want to go crazy with it. This Vibranium Sledgehammer preset just sounds awesome on every bass I've ever put it on. So I keep that in there, but I keep it inactive. Filtering a little bit of the low subs, just some of the really high highs for anything that leaks through. Rouser, bass enhancer, we're rolling off up to 70 hertz. That way we're not clamping anything that's 70 hertz and lower is not going to get compressed, or it's not going to trigger the compressor, I should say. 4-to-1, kind of a medium attack, fast release, and we will hit that pretty hard too. It's probably going to get more than 10 dB of gain reduction on it. And then my bass SSL channel. Again, it's going to have a fast attack on that compressor, just to level things out as much as I can. And this is the bass amp, which will probably be pretty much the exact same to start with. Yep, it is. Except the only difference here is because the bass amp is going to be driven more times than not, I don't need to have a fast compressor on it, so I will turn that off and kind of give the amp a little bit life by having a slower compressor onto it. And these are my guitars. My guitar DI and my guitar amp. And these are grouped together right here. I'll show you. This group here, and they're color-coded, alternating colors of blue, just so that way when I'm working, I don't just see this big mass of blue. I can tell left and right tracks by the color. And we are outputting the DI, here we go, down here, to my tuner, which sits in the rack behind me. Easy place for people to tune from. I have the C4 compressor, multiband compressor on here. We're down about 128 hertz. And this is for palm muting. Anytime there's some woofiness in the guitars from palm muting, turn this on. That tames it down nicely. F6, again, filtering off a little bit of the lows, up to 50, taking off some of the highs just to clean it up. This is my preset, or not my preset, but these are the frequencies that I typically will boost and cut at, but I don't have them engaged here. As time has gone on, I actually EQ my guitars less and less because I use my Kemper, or because I have the ability to track with the guitar amp in my control room and the cabinet in the live room. I'm able to dial in guitar tones while I'm playing the song, and I'm listening to the drums, I'm listening to the bass and the vocals, and I'm able to get tones that are much more accurate and thereby not really requiring a lot of processing once it's done. And last in my signal chain here is the 3A, which is a bit of a slower plugin. I usually do a 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction on this just to give it some more oomph every time it comes in. And I am sending out this left track to my right room reverb, which exists a little bit further down in the session. And then for the guitars, as you can see, I have 8 pairs of them ready to go, left and right. That usually gets me through most sessions without having to create any other ones. And here is my vocal. Filtering off up to about 100 hertz. My channel strip here. Again, I typically don't really do too much on my vocals since I process on the way in, but 10K is usually something that gets boosted at, a little bit 4, a little bit 2. That's about it. I do have this 1176 compressor in my signal chain still. This is basically for tracks that I receive from somebody else that hasn't been compressed on the way in. In those cases, I'll turn this on, but for the most part, that just stays inactive. And then I do follow it up with the 2A. I find the 2A really just brings the vocals forward in a dense mix, and it's just kind of a nice finisher. Wave sibilance, probably one of the easiest and best de-essers I've ever come across. Pretty sure this is mostly just the default setting. I think I just changed the range and the threshold a little bit. Really great plugin to have. A little bit of limiting to kind of keep us in a safe range. And then this is my fader rider, vocal rider by Waves. Excellent plugin, saves a ton of time. There's a side chain here, as I said previously, that I receive from my kick, my bass, and my guitars. That way the music or the instruments affects how high or how low this plugin will ride my vocals. And I've got it set to do a 3 dB boost or a 3 dB cut maximum. So it's just going to be doing little moves for me to help save me time on having to ride a fader manually myself here in the control room. And then when we're tracking, we will send out a little bit to the room, a plate reverb, and we will do a little bit of 8th note delay. Again, just so we're working in context, but we're not bringing in a ton of effects that's going to bog down Pro Tools and cause me to have to increase my buffer size, which then could cause some latency for the musicians while they're tracking. So keep it light. And then I have the plate reverb here, which is got this EQ on here, which is the Abbey Road EQ trick. The Valhalla plate. I'm just using this medium titanium vocal perfection preset. This is something that I'll get into a little bit more when I get into my mix template, but I keep plugins and especially effects that I may need. So I have alternatives to Valhalla Plate in here. So if Valhalla Plate's not cutting it for me, I just have to click here, and I've got Deverb up. If that's not working, I click here. I've got Little Plate up. That's not working. I can open Waves IRL and load in an impulse response. But basically, it just saves me from having to go through my plugins list and dig out the plugins that I want. If I know I'm potentially going to use them, why not have them ready to go? And same thing for my room here. It's just getting room because I love that one. Don't really need any alternatives for it. Eighth note delay is from D16's repeater. This is available in the Slate Everything bundle. I don't really particularly care for that one, so I bought this from D16 because I fell in love with this when I tried it out. Using just a CLA eighth note delay. I think that's just the default settings. I don't think I've changed that preset at all. But then if that's not working though, I do have Echo Boy here. And if that's not working, I have H-Verb. Really cool for throw delays. If that's not working, I have just the stock mod delay. And then last but not least, just the Crystal Art Algae effects pack, which has some cool delays in them. But yeah, so the most part, those just stay made inactive. And here's something that's actually kind of cool too, that a lot of people seem to be surprised when they see in my templates when they're working. I have two click tracks, quarter note, which is a block, and the eighth note shakers. So it's really helpful in pre-production when I'm tracking bass, guitar, and vocals. So that way the drummer has something to play to. The quarter note, eighth notes in the shaker and the blocks just kind of gives it more of a percussive feel. And the musicians aren't really, they don't tend to tense up like they do when it's just that, metronome on the quarter notes all the time. Can't explain it, but it works. And then I'm able to mix the quarter note and eighth notes the way I like. And yeah, it's really cool. So here on out, these are all my scratch tracks that I use for pre-production. And you can tell they're scratch tracks because they've all been marked yellow. Yellow basically just means they're expendable. I can delete these anytime I want. It's probably not going to be anything on there that's worth keeping for primary tracking or mixing, but occasionally that does happen. But yeah, so for the most part, this is just identical to the primary tracks. They're just marked yellow. And the one addition is this one aux that I have here, or it's MIDI track I have with SSD, and I just have one of the Crystal Art Algae drum kits loaded up. It's just handy to have for pre-production when we're tracking, in case tracking to the quarter note, eighth note click tracks isn't working for the band. I can throw on a basic drum beat that is approximate to what the song is, and hopefully they can track to that a little bit better. Basically, just giving myself more options. And last, I have my master, my tracking master. I have CLA mixdown on. Not only do I mix into it, but I record into it. It just sounds, the default settings are Crystal Art Algae's default settings that he has in his studio. So for the most part, you don't really have to do too much to make this plugin sound good. And once you get this needle hitting about -3 dB on the gain reduction, that's sort of the sweet spot that Crystal Art Algae intended this plugin to be used at. And I find that with my setup like this, I can hit that sweet spot pretty much every time. It sounds great. And then last, I just have an L1 with the ceiling set to -0.1 and the threshold at -5. I'll just crank this up when I'm sending MP3s out to the band or while we're working, just so, again, things sound hyped. But I won't really do any gain reduction with this, maybe 1 dB, catching little peaks here and there. But for the most part, it's just volume. And then again, heat is turned on. So that's the tracking template. All of my audio tracks are there. There are a few auxes just for those effects, but they're expendable. And I will basically import from this particular document into my session data or my sessions through import session data later. I'll show you an example of that. But let's show the mix template first. The mix template is all of my auxes and all of my effects. These tracking and the mix template technically could be one document, but it would be a lot of tracks and it would be a lot to look at in the list from the session import data window. So I break them up just to make my life a little easier. Okay, so this is my mix template. And as I showed you before in the beginning with the Canadian Way example, I have an aux for my kicks, snare, tom, cymbals, my fake drum room here, which doesn't really need to be here. I make that inactive because I have that track in my tracking template. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the mix template, but it's there just in case. Rooms, drum crush. And we'll go back to the kick here. As you've seen in my tracking template, I have the F6 RTA across all of my tracks. I have a SSL channel strip on pretty much everything. And then I have my other plugins. So kick is there. We're not doing any cuts here because we've already done that on the individual tracks. This is more being used just for the real-time analyzer. Arouser. Again, I use this on anything with a lot of low end, so that way I can roll off or do the cutoff here. So that way I'm not losing that low end by doing lots of compression. SSL channel strip. Pultec. I'm using the boosting and cutting, that trick to give the EQ a little bit of a bump. And I do that at about 60 hertz, which makes the sound very thumpy. Doing some saturation. And then we're doing low control. We're compressing everything 90 hertz and below. And then we're going to enhance 55 hertz and up. And then we're doing some basic clipping to give the kicks, all the kicks, a bit more aggression, basically. And then we're sending out to the drum room, drum crush, and the kick side chain that goes to track spacer on the bass aux. Snare drum, same thing, just basically using it for the analyzer. Arouser makes it kind of dirty. SSL channel strip, saturation, clipper. Same here, drum room, drum crush, and this side chain goes to track spacer on the guitar bus to dip out some frequencies on the guitars when the snare hits. Toms get an analyzer, channel strip, saturation, and then limiting. Cymbals, same thing, analyzer, channel strip. C4, this is kind of like my guitar. It's an Andy Sneap trick from the forums back in the day. Only I've moved it up to about 1K, so that way the crack of the snare gets compressed down in the cymbals bus. Just removes some snare from there, and that way I can ride the cymbals up a little higher. And we're doing some limiting. All right, drum rooms. Don't need much. A lot of this processing is done on the individual tracks, real-time analyzer, channel strip. And then here is my main drum bus. Same thing, real-time analyzer. Bus compressor, which is just doing probably about 1 dB of gain reduction. It's just a little padding. Channel strip, and we'll saturate the drums right here. Instead of doing it on all of the individual tracks, we'll do a little bit on the overall drums. My drum crush is next. As you can see, I start out the fader all the way down to the bottom. Usually only feather in a little bit of that. We have the bus compressor, only this is a crush settings that you can see down here. Probably hit this one pretty hard, probably 10, 12 dB, if not more, of gain reduction. Channel strip here. On this one, I'll usually go in and boost some of the highs and lows after the heavy compression, just to combat any dullness that comes out of the compression. Saturation, and we will clip this one pretty heavily too, to again just squeeze out as much aggression from it as we can. All of these auxes send out to a Kramer tape, just for some tape saturation, very light. I find this particular one kind of absorbs harshness in the high end, so it's just kind of a 2-for-1 for me. It's a little bit of saturation, a little bit of noise reduction. And then this one is sending out to the vocal rider, the sidechain for that vocal plugin. And these are percussion and keys. These are both the same right now. SSL, or not the SSL, F6 RTA, bus compressor, set to gentle, and then the channel strip, Kramer tape, and we're sending off to the vocal rider. And we do send this off to the rear bus for later. Same for keys and bass, or keys and percussion. Bass is here. Real-time analyzer, the arouser, which will be getting hit pretty hard, probably up to 14 dB gain reduction, depending on what was done to the individual bass tracks. Channel strip, 1176. Again, this is just here for some flavor. Probably won't do too much on that. Saturation, low control. Anything 190 hertz and below is going to get compressed and evened out. I'm not doing any enhancing here. We do some limiting. Again, just reducing the dynamic range. That bass is just pinned where we want it. And this is the track spacer from the kick sidechain. Here's the kick sidechain right here. So this is targeting anything from, say, 20 hertz up to about 500 hertz. Will dip out of the bass anytime the kick hits. And it really does just allow things to slot together and fit perfectly. It's a great plugin to have. Definitely recommend it. Kramer tape, vocal rider, rear bus. Moving along. My guitars. Real-time analyzer, bus compressor, channel strip, saturation, limiting, and track spacer. This is sidechain from the snare, and this is targeting about 120 hertz to 4.5 kilohertz. Not doing too much on that one. Again, the little bit goes a long way. Very, very cool plugin though. Kramer tape, vocal rider, rear bus. And the vocals bus, same thing. Actually, the same. That's a background vocals bus right here. So these two are the exact same. Real-time analyzer, bus compressors, channel strip. Yeah, Kramer tape on these. One thing is different here is these send out to the AFX exciter effect, which is right here. It's a great plugin that gives them a nice lift in the high end, lots of air to the vocals. So I mix into that, and I have that on there. So that way, any vocal audio track that's being routed through this bus gets automatically sent off to that effect right away. And then the rear bus is here as well. And that's it for my auxes, or my buses for my audio tracks. So as you saw before, audio tracks, these buses, they will eventually get combined in the mix. I'll show you that once we're done with the effects. So this is the AFX Exciter. I got this from Andrew Sheps. This was a really cool thing. Like I said, it just gives the vocals some air and some lift in the high frequencies. It's great to mix into. This is a kind of a chorusy, reverby room sound that I will put on bass occasionally, which kind of gives it a Nirvana come as you are feeling to the bass. And then a compressor, to compress that effect a little bit. And then we're filtering off some highs and lows after we're done. This one is Antares Choir, just great for adding thickness to backing vocals, filtering off some highs and lows. CLAFX, this one's kind of cool. As I said before, I like this canyon reverb for my toms. So the toms are already sending out to this, and I just keep this one up in case I don't have anything else that sounds better. Filtering off the highs and lows there. Quarter note delay is just some variation on this preset from Repeater. And as I showed you before in the tracking template, I have other delays ready to go. Echo Boy, H delay, mod delay, CLA vocals, which has different delays in it. Actually has cool throw delay in it too. Or no, the effects has throw delay, sorry. But I keep it in there because it's handy to have. And then my eighth note delays, which is just Repeater. Again, a mild variation on this preset. Echo Boy, H delay, mod delay, CLA vocals are there if I need them. This is my throw delay. Typically, I will use H delay as my throw delay. Don't know why, just like this one for some reason. It's a really great throw plugin, but I do have all my other delays in there, filtering off the lows. Also, too, as you can see, all the delays get sent out to some room and some plate reverb, just so the return on those is wet. And because primarily vocals are going through that, and I don't want to send out a dry vocal to the delay and then get a dry delay back. I want a wet delay, just a little bit. Delay X, this is just a bonus delay that is here in case none of the other ones are cutting it. I don't have to create another track. I just have it here. I can kind of go crazy with it. And like I said, it's just one less step to worry about. Distortion, this is primarily for vocals. I like this one from Waves, the Berserk. And if that doesn't work, I have the Sans Amp, which is kind of cool. Old one, oldie but a goodie. What else we have here for distortion? Yeah, there is some distortion in this CLA one that's there in case it's needed. Decapitator, even though it's not a distortion plugin. You hit it pretty hard, you'll get that distortion. Devil Lock, can't go wrong with that one either. It sounds really cool for distortion when you really hit it hard. And there's some Echo Boy in there too. I don't know why that's in there. Oh, that's in there too because I will sometimes turn this on to widen the return on the distortion. Don't do that too often. In fact, I forgot about it altogether. And my doubler, which is just the stop Waves doubler with the direct turned off since this is done in parallel. Filtering off the lows and highs. Filter Vox. This is just that typical. I think I copied this actually, these settings from the CLA preset in the Waves SSL channel strip. I just keep this here in case I want to do this particular effect in parallel instead of on the actual track itself. And if that doesn't work, I do actually have the actual SSL channel strip here. Next is my guitar delay. Repeater. Again, I don't think I've actually changed this one. So that's just a great wide solo delay. Sounds great on pretty much everything. Great starting point. But I do have Echo Boy, H delay, mod delay, and then we are filtering off some highs and lows on those. Guitar Verb is next. That one gets some Valhalla plate using the steely guitar space. Just starting points, but I do have deverb. I do have a spring reverb here. that can sound kind of cool at times. And we also have another Valhalla. We have the room, just in case the plate isn't working. Micro shift, great for vocals. Pretty much set to the default, I think. Mix is 100% wet. Same thing, highs and lows get filtered off there. These are basically just here in case I need to, if there's any harshness from the return or any subbiness from the return, I can just kind of go in there and take care of it. So they're ready to go, but aren't really doing too much on their own. Then this is my vocal plate reverb. Have to do the filtering first before you actually hit the effect to do this correctly. So we are rolling off up to 600 hertz down here, and then we are taking off the top up to 8 kilohertz. And then we're doing a 3 dB dip at 3 kilohertz, which is where some harshness typically lies. Kind of have to move that around just to find it though. And then I also have deverb here, little plate, waves IRL. Valhalla plate is the one that I like to use. Medium titanium vocal perfection is my starting point. Reverb X is the same as delay X. It's just a bonus one that I can go to when I need something really crazy. And I keep Eventide's Black Hole active on this one because it is a crazy reverb and it's a lot of fun to use. Room. This is where all my guitars get sent out to. The left and right guitars get sent out to. Vocals get sent out to here. We're doing a little bit of filtering to begin with. And then we have the Valhalla room, which is just a large wood room again. Same one that I use for the drums, but I have separate instances of them because they're being treated differently. Getting to the end. And a slap delay. This is CLA's tape slap, and the only thing I think I did is I turned down the feedback down to like 1%, so it's just that one hit. This normally starts out really high. I don't know why. Not really a slap, so to say. I have other delays in here: Echo Boy, H delay, Mod delay. I don't even know what that one is. It doesn't even exist anymore. Okay, we can take it out. Antares Duo, which is great for kind of a cool slappy effect sometimes. CLA vocals. A little slap on there. These are all just different flavors of the same thing, basically. And because this is a delay, it has the room and plate sends as well to wet the return. Snare gate, filtering out the highs and lows. Going in with the Valhalla plate. Then I have my snare plate, or this is the snare gated, I should say. And this is my snare plate over here, which is a long brass ballad snare. It's kind of a big one, almost 4 seconds long. And then the typical widener, which gets used on vocals a lot. That's just the repeater, vocal widener 1 preset. I don't think I changed anything on this one. Doesn't look like it. Filtering off some highs and lows. And then this is the rear bus. So the rear bus master just controls how much is getting sent into the actual aux. Anymore nowadays, I don't really have to change this one much. My level's pretty much dialed in to begin with. But yeah, this is the rear bus that I was talking about earlier. So bass, guitar, vocals all get sent to this particular compressor. Slow attack, fast release, 4:1 ratio, and I'm doing about 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction, and I don't want any level coming out of this. I want this to be a 1-to-1. As I said before, the point of this one is to have these tracks kind of ebb and flow together as the vocals come in and come out. Since the vocals are the loudest, they're going to be what triggers the compressor the most. So they really, like I said, this just really adds a heartbeat to the song as it's a very musical compressor, basically, I guess is what I should say. A very cool trick. Lots of videos online about the rear bus technique if you want to look into it more. And then everything else gets fed into my master here. These are all going out the mix bus, by the way. The mix bus starts here, and this is my signal chain for my mix bus. Soothe, de-essing the mix, just in case I went a little crazy with any harshness, any buildup that's come along. I just tamp it down right there. Doesn't do a lot. Low control on the mix bus is really cool. 110 hertz-ish. Just a little light compression here, like 1-2 dB, just kind of helps keep that low end for the overall mix in place. CLA mix down. As I said before, I don't really change these settings too much. I try to hit the gain reduction on the compressor so that I'm getting about 3 dB, maybe 4 or 5 at most. That's the intended signal that the plugin was designed for, according to Chris Lord-Alge. So if you have this set to default and this needle is bouncing around 3 to 5, you're hearing what Chris Lord-Alge himself intended. Next, we're doing some saturation with BB tubes. It's kind of a light setting for the bus. It gives it a nice lift. Very musical plugin too. Sounds very cool. Fresh air is giving me a lot of top end. As I said, the name implies, it gives it some air, some breath, some space. I have an L1 limiter here, which is used for automating. I automate this on the master or on the mix bus. So like when the chorus comes in, I will bring the threshold down maybe 1 dB just to give it a bit of a bump. And then when the chorus is done, I'll take it back to 0. And again, just gives the song some ebb and flow from section to section. And then I have the L1 Ultra Maximizer, which is just there for volume level. Again, like with my tracking limiter, I just want to be able to crank this up, not really do much gain reduction, but just get the volumes. That way when I make an MP3 for the bands, they are hearing it comparable to what all their other songs that they have on their phone sound like. And then heat is on as well. Drive is 1 click to the left, tone to 1 click to the right. And that is my mix template. So I'm going to quickly now show you how I combine all of these and get to the point where my Canadian Way mix was without actually having to create any tracks or without having to go through my plugins list. So it's very cool. Let's get into it. That up. Okay, so what we'll do here is I'm just going to create a new session. And we'll call it session build. Sorry, I can't type. I've got an injured hand, so it makes using the keyboard tricky. Bear with me anytime you see me typing. All right, we'll create a session. We will just put this on the desktop for now. Okay, so what I'll do is I will go in. First thing I do is I get the bands to send me their song structures, tempo, timing, the sections, the bars that are in each of them. So basically I can put together the entire session before they get here, and I will be familiar with the song and know what's going on. So, for example, I'd go in here, put the tempo 220, something like that. Maybe go in here. I'd start putting markers in based on the song structure information that the band gave me. So I would do, intro there, verse 1, chorus 1, bridge. And so on and so forth. Then what I'll do, first thing I'm going to do is pre-production tracks. I'm going to need, so when the band's in, recording our scratch tracks for the drummer to use, and so we can start to hear the song. We can gauge the tempo. We can gauge the key that it's in. This is the stage we do it at. So I'm just going to go in here, Scroll to the bottom because that's where my scratch tracks are. I'm gonna bring in my effects though, because I do want to have my effects, my tracking effects. I'm gonna bring in my click track. Bring in my MIDI drums just in case I need them when we're tracking the scratch tracks. Bass, and in this example, I'll bring in, say, 3 guitars, 2 rhythms, and a lead. But we have up to 8 if we need them. We'll bring in a scratch vocal track, and we'll bring in a tracking master track. Boom, right there. All my inputs are set up and ready to go. My plugins are ready to go. I'm ready to record, and I haven't had to create a track. I haven't had to add a plugin. So use your imagination. So now I've gone through and I've recorded my bass, guitar, and vocal scratch tracks with the band. And now we're ready to track our drums. So I'll go up here. And I'll pull in the drums, bass, and guitar and vocal tracks at this stage as well too. So we're tracking drums. We're gonna go in here, pull in all these tracks from the top of my tracking template, my drum room, and then we'll bring in our bass as well, just so it's there when we're ready for it. Do 3 guitars like we did in the pre-production. Scroll down here and do the vocals and hit import. And then I just have to bring this effects down here. So at the top of my my mix or my editing window is my drums. Again, all my inputs are set up that I normally use. Bass tracks, guitars. So these scratch tracks would be active while we're recording the drums. Once the drums are done, I'll usually do guitars next. So I'll jump down here, select these guitars, make them inactive. So that way I'm now tracking with the finished drums and my scratch, bass, and vocals while the guitar player is tracking. Again, it's working in context. Helps them play better, helps me get an idea of what tones are working, what EQing I need to be doing, compression, so on and so forth. So we go up here, track all our guitars, left, right, lead. So then we're going to do the bass. We come back down here, disable these. So we're basically just using the scratch vocal track at this point. Well, the bass player is playing, so he's playing to scratch vocals, finished drums, finished guitars. And then last but not least, we do the vocals. We go in, we just turn off this last track from pre-production, and our pre-production tracks are done. We don't need these anymore. So we can go ahead and hide them. Just clean up things a little bit. Vocals, I don't know if I said this before, but I only have one of these in my template because what I'll do is I'll just duplicate this track as I'm working, because typically you're working with the same singer. So once I get the EQ and compression dialed in, it's easier just to duplicate the track with the playlist taken off. And in this case, I'll say I'll do 2 of these. So we have a lead and we'll have stereo doubles. And then I just rename these. Vox 2, Vox 3, pan right, pan left, boom. Got my vocal, got all the tracks I need for vocals for the same vocalist. Everything's dialed in, ready to go. And now we've recorded everything. So I'm going to go through and I've got my drum or auto line ready to go on all my tracks already. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to phase line all of my drums with auto line. Once that's done, I'm going to go in with my kick, snare, top, and toms with Oxford drum gate. I'm going to gate those out. Again, these are already present in the mix. I don't have to do, or in my tracking tracks, audio tracks, so I don't have to do anything here. Next, I would then convert the drums to MIDI. So I would go in here, import session data, back to my templates, drum MIDI. Here it is. So I'm going to bring in my SSD sampler and my kick and snare MIDI. So kick audio goes above the kick MIDI, snare top goes above the snare MIDI. And now I'm ready to use Massey DRT to convert these tracks to MIDI. And then I can use my SSD sampler to sample off any samples that I want. And in my case, down here, I have all my favorite one-shots saved that I can trigger off real easy. I don't have to do anything. They've been created and they're ready to go. I also have my Chris Lord-Alge samples that I like a lot. So I do that. And then once the samples are committed, I just go in here, hide and make inactive. And next I would then go in and I would tune my vocals. So I come down here, select the track ahead of the vocals, import session data. Here we go, tuner. And because we have 3 vocal tracks, Vox 1, 2, and 3, we will import Vox 1, 2, and 3 from the vocal tuner. And my routing already outputs Melodyne 1, Melodyne 2, Melodyne 3. So what I would do is I would take the clips that are in my vocal tracks and I would just copy them and I would paste them directly into these tracks. So that way I can then dump those down into Melodyne in one shot. But first I have to come in here and I need to put these all into input, which I can't do right now because I'm recording this and I have a different device set. And then I would go into the input and these would all be set to the Melodynes, Melodyne 1, Melodyne 2, Melodyne 3. So that way the audio from the vocal tuner goes out the vocal tuner back into the vocal tracks respectively. And I have Auto Key by Antares on, just in case Melodyne doesn't quite detect it properly. More times than not, I actually find that Auto Key is a little bit more accurate, so it's good to have around. Then I have Melodyne here, and I would just open this up, and I would arm these tracks, hit play, dump all my audio down to Melodyne, and then I can proceed to edit in there. But what I do, I got this trick from my buddy Siegfried as well, is I follow this up with auto-tune set to a chromatic scale, and it's just doing very gentle tuning. And what it's going to do is it's going to catch a lot of the little stuff that I would normally have to do in Melodyne. So in Melodyne, I would see something maybe that's out of place, but audibly I don't hear it because this one's taming the tuning just a little bit on the way out. So it's a huge time saver, and the double tuning effect just makes it a lot more transparent, a lot more musical too. So I would do my tuning in Melodyne, and then I would come back down here and I would arm these tracks, and then I would record out of Melodyne and auto-tune back into my main audio track and commit my tuning just in case something in Melodyne gets reset. If I have to recall the session later and there's been an update to Melodyne and auto-tune, something might have changed. So I've committed the tuning by recording the track to back to the main. And again, I'm using playlists for all of these things too, so I can always step backwards if I have to. But once that's done, I will turn off my tuners, hide and make inactive. And at this point, I would be ready to bring in my mix template. Before I do that, though, I have really dialed in this mix. Like by this point, everything's been edited, everything's been tuned. I've had plenty of time to live with the tones in the individual tracks. So I've EQ'd and compressed as much as I can. Basically, it should sound good before I bring in the mix template, because the mix template is not going to save a crappy mix at this stage. If the mix doesn't sound good, the mix template processing is not going to help at all. This is where it needs to happen. So all I do though, when I'm ready to do that, is I go in here, delete these tracks because they exist within these effects exist within my mix template. Don't need to click track anymore. And I'm going to bring in my new master, my mix bus. So delete that. Place our playhead there, or select the track there. Import session data. Back to templates. And mix. So we're going to bring in our drum auxes. We don't need this drum room because I've already got it in there from tracking, but we do need our rooms, our drums, drum crush. There's no percussion or keys in this particular example, but we do have our bass tracks, guitars and vocals. This background vocal track I don't really need in this case because there's not that many tracks, but if there were a lot of them, I would bring in the backing vocal track. And this is all my effects. And then down here at the bottom, I have my master and my mix bus. So I import that. Cool. And all my tracks are there. So immediately what I would do is I would go into my audio tracks, select them all, and I would set the output of them from my main out to the mix bus. So right now, everything is playing through my mix bus, which is going to give me a kind of top-down mixing. Everything's going to start sounding a little bit more fuller, richer because of the processing that's on the mix bus. And I'm going to get the level out of it that I need. So I just go over to the tracks window list here. I take my kick aux and I move it up to the kick drums. There'll be a lot of, probably a couple of kick samples in there with it. Snares go in here. Toms to the toms. Cymbals to the cymbals. They go down here. This talkback mic can be deleted now. We don't need that now that we're done tracking. This anal track is actually a room. My rooms, which comes in here. So I have my anal room track, my stereo room track, and then I have my faux room track. And then we follow that up with drum bus, drum crush. Bass goes up to the bass ones, guitars to guitars, vocals stay where they are. So now, as you can see, this is now starting to look like my Canadian Way example that I showed at the beginning of this video. All I have to do now is just go in here and set this to the appropriate auxes or the appropriate routing. So kick to kick, snares go into the snare bus. Toms will go into the tom bus. And while I'm doing this, I'll actually have the audio playing so I can hear if I'm getting any level or a decrease in level as I'm routing my tracks. I shouldn't. So, but playing it while I'm doing this just keeps me honest. Cymbals go out to the cymbals bus. Room tracks go out to the room track, which is called rooms, since it's plural. And that's it for my drums. My drums are routed. I'm ready to do my aux mixing, which is basically just a refinement of the audio tracks that I already have so far. Bass is easy too, goes out to the bass bus. At this point, I would go ahead and hide and make active my DIs. I'd send all the amps out to the guitar bus. There. And all my vocals out to the vocal bus. And that's it. All my routing's done. All my pre-mixing is done. I have my bus processing ready to go, kind of in a neutral position, so that way I can now start top-down mixing the audio tracks, and all my effects. They're ready to go. Just like in the example that I showed at the beginning of this long-winded example. But yeah, so that's it. Then I would just go through to dial in my mix. I would turn heat on, obviously. Same settings I usually have. And then basically the only thing that I do is when I'm done the mix, I would just go in and disable this L1 maximizer, because it's just giving me volume and I don't need that for mastering. Everything else gets sent off to mastering like that. And that's it. That is all of my templates and the workflow from start to finish. As I said in the beginning, as I demonstrated, I didn't create any tracks. I didn't have to go through my plugins list at all. The tools that I usually use are accessible and ready to go. And my workflow is already mapped out ahead of time. I know how it goes from tracking to editing to mixing. And it's just a continuous evolution of the session from where I start to where I end. And like I said, it just is very creative for me. It lets me think about what does this sound like, as opposed to what tools do I need to use to get it to sound like that. I already have them ready to go. So if this has been helpful, please like, share, subscribe, do all that shit. If you happen to be a Pro Tools user and you would like copies of these, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to send these out to anybody that might want them. You can steal all my settings, all the routing, whatever is going to be helpful to you. So yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.